So let's be clear. What we're talking about is nothing short of the sitting President of the United States looting from the Treasury for his own gain. Do you seriously think this arrangement is appropriate? The President telling the federal government to settle a case and let him pay billions to the people that he chooses?
What you just described wouldn't be appropriate, and that's absolutely not what happened, and that's not what's happening now. So you just set up a series of facts, most of which were not true.
No,
no, it's not. I mean,
the President has set up a slush fund, however you want to say that it got set up, and he literally will get to choose through his hand-picked appointees who gets paid that fund. That is absurd.
The President did not.
Right there in the hearing, Senator Patty Murray stopped sounding diplomatic. She looked straight at Todd Blanche and exposed what millions of Americans are furious about. While families are struggling with gas prices, inflation, and the rising cost of living, the Department of Justice is being accused of standing behind a $1.80 billion arrangement, a fund, Murray, framed as a symbol of favoritism, power, and political corruption. But her hardest hit did not stop there. Murray shifted to the Epstein files and put Blanche in a position he could not easily escape. Why were the names and sensitive information of victims exposed, while powerful accused individuals seemed to remain protected? She demanded one simple thing, a clear apology to the survivors. And Todd Blanche? He talked in circles. He explained. He hid behind procedure. But Murray did not let him escape behind bureaucratic language. She pressed him directly. I still haven't heard you say the words, I apologize. This was no longer a normal question and answer exchange. This was the moment Murray turned the hearing into a public indictment against the Department of Justice she believes is protecting the powerful while real victims are being hurt all over again.
Acting Attorney General, right now, families are paying $4, $5, even $6 or $7 for gas. Inflation is at its highest level in years because of the President's policies. But instead of helping Americans get by, President Trump is literally using their tax dollars to set up a slush fund to enrich his own friends. On Monday, your department settled the President's lawsuit by setting up a fund with $1.8 billion, and you and the President will pick the handful of people who decide how that money gets doled out. So let's be clear. What we're talking about is nothing short of the sitting President of the United States looting from the Treasury for his own gain. Do you seriously think this arrangement is appropriate? The President telling the federal government to settle a case and let him pay billions to the people that he chooses?
What you just described wouldn't be appropriate, and that's absolutely not what happened, and that's not what's happening now. So you just set up a series of facts, most of which were not true.
No,
no, it's not. I mean,
the President has set up a slush fund, however you want to say that it got set up, and he literally will get to choose through his hand-picked appointees who gets paid that fund. That is absurd.
The President did not set up this fund. It's not a slush fund. It's been done many times. We have lots of funds.
Well, I heard your response earlier to Senator Van Hollen. This is not comparable to the case that you cited. A judge was not involved. This is the President versus himself setting up a fund.
The judge wasn't involved in the distribution in the Keep Siegel case at all. It just wasn't. There was a single commissioner that was set up, not five. And so when
the judge signed off on that case.
Yes, it was at a much later point in the litigation.
That's my point. That is all of our point. And I just have to tell you, this is corruption that has never been more blatant or more widespread. What is happening is you write the check, Trump and his cronies cash it. American taxpayers, who are already being whacked with high prices, are going to foot the bill. That's what we are seeing today, and that is what many of us are really, really angry about. So let me move to another topic. This Department of Justice is sending the message that if you're wealthy, if you're powerful, if you are well-connected, you won't be held accountable even if you abuse children. You know, it's after Congress passed the Epstein Files Transparency Act and DOJ finally began to release the files, your department exposed survivors' names, their sensitive personal information, and even nude photos, while redacting names of alleged perpetrators of those crimes. The message that sends is this Department of Justice worked harder to protect the privacy of potential child abusers than the survivors. Your predecessor refused to apologize to those victims, but I want to give you the same opportunity to apologize for the way the department handled the release of these documents. Will you apologize to the survivors?
When the president passed the Epstein Transparency Act, that was the only time, when the president signed the Transparency Act, that was when we were legally allowed to release the files. Prior to the passage of the act, which you all passed, I agree.
That is so not the question I'm asking.
It was the question you asked. You asked 5 or 6 questions. I'm answering them in order.
No,
that was one of the questions you asked.
The question I want you to answer is, will you apologize to the victims whose names, sensitive personal information, and even nude photos were not redacted by your department? Will you apologize
to them? Of course. That was, we never want to release a single victim's name. That is what they are hearing. But can I answer the question, please? Is it fair?
I'm asking if you'll apologize.
So I just said yes, but I would like an explanation to be given to that. What this act did is it required us to review over 6 million pieces of paper in a very short period of time. And so 0.001%, we made mistakes and we owned up to them. And the second that a victim or their lawyer told us that we made a mistake, we pulled that document down and we put lawyers 24/7 in being responsive to victims and their lawyers to make sure that we fixed every single problem. And so yes,
I hear your anger.
I'm not angry. No, I'm not angry. I'm just making sure it's understood that we matter.
There are nude photos released. I just want to hear you say I apologize to those victims.
So as I just said, of course, any time we release a victim's name that shouldn't be released, we have failed as a Department of Justice. And so we have to do everything that we can to not fail.
Well, I haven't heard the words I apologize.
I'm trying to give you an explanation of what happened. I don't think you're really interested in that because you keep on cutting me off.
Well, I am, but I have a few more questions here, and I want to know, and I know that Senator Van Hollen raised this, but I want to ask, will you personally commit to meeting with the survivors? I have heard from them personally that DOJ refused to meet them. And I'm asking about you. I'm asking about the Justice Department reaching out to them to be heard, not waiting for them to navigate a legal system that has obviously repeatedly failed them so far.
Can I answer?
Yeah, will you reach out to them?
So, as we have said repeatedly, of course, any lawyer, now if a victim has a lawyer, I'm not allowed to reach out to the victim directly, you know that. But any lawyer can reach out to the Department of Justice. They have, and I've met with many victims and their lawyers, as has the FBI, as has the SDNY. We will always meet with victims' counsel. Any victim or their lawyer can come forward to the FBI
with these
at
women,
any time.
and I've met with them, and I know Senator Van Hollen has, and so many other. They are personally so feeling abused again and again by what happened to them originally, and now but what's happening by them. I am saying to you, as a human being, don't make them navigate a system that is impossible to navigate, that's already abused them. Reach out and ask to meet with them.
Wait, you're asking me to call, you want me to personally call the victims?
I can help you reach them.
Oh, that would be great. Yes, because we have said from day one, of course, there have been members that have done that. And we immediately reach out to the victims or their lawyers when the lawyers want and they say they want to do it.
We will follow up on that. Thank you very much.
Todd Blanche walked into that hearing as the man representing the Department of Justice. But his answers sounded less like accountability and more like damage control wrapped in bureaucratic fog. When Patty Murray pressed him on the $1.80 billion fund, Blanche did not deliver a clean, convincing explanation that would reassure the public. Instead, he denied, deflected, and tried to reduce a serious accusation about power, taxpayer money, and political favoritism into a technical legal dispute. But Murray exposed the problem immediately. If everything was so innocent, so normal, and so transparent, why did Blanche sound like a man defending a scandal instead of explaining the truth? The most disturbing moment came during the Epstein Files exchange. Murray asked him directly whether he would apologize to the survivors whose names, sensitive personal information, and private images were exposed by the DOJ. And even then, Blanche could not simply say the words, "I apologize." Instead, he hid behind process. He talked about millions of documents. He talked about review timelines. He talked about percentages, lawyers, and procedures. But victims do not need a cold administrative lecture from the Department of Justice. They need recognition. They need responsibility. They need to hear that the government understands it failed them. And that is exactly where Blanche collapsed, because this was not a complicated question. It did not require a legal memo. It did not require a defensive monologue. It required basic human decency. If the DOJ exposed survivors while shielding powerful names, then the first response should not be excuses. It should be shame. It should be accountability. It should be a direct apology. Blanche tried to make this sound like a paperwork problem. Murray made it clear it was a moral failure. And in that moment, Blanche did not look like a protector of justice. He looked like another powerful official desperate to protect the institution from embarrassment, even if that meant making survivors feel abandoned all over again. Patty Murray did not just question him. She exposed him. She showed the public a Department of Justice that talks endlessly about the law, but suddenly struggles when it is asked to show basic humanity.